number 1 Georgia, now finally number 1 Georgia, at number 18 Tennessee, 3:30 p.m. on CBS. Storyline, honestly, is can Georgia continue passing its brutal stretch of the season with flying colors, man? This is the 3rd straight week that Georgia is playing a top 25 team. They beat number 12 Missouri by 9 a couple weeks ago. They won that game. Missouri's a top 10 team in the country. I understand that Missouri covered the spread in that game, but when you beat a top 10 team by 9, I don't care how much you beat them by, that's a good win for Georgia. And then they just annihilated Ole Miss this past weekend, who was a top 10 team, number 9 in the country. They beat them by 35 points. 52-17 was the final score in that one. Now you got a worse team, I would say, than Missouri and Ole Miss, but still a top 20 team in Tennessee. And the other thing I got to keep in mind, both the Missouri and Ole Miss games were in Athens, Georgia. This game is in Knoxville, in a hostile environment in Knoxville. So the defending back-to-back champs, yes, it is an easier game by opponent, but it could be a more difficult game with the environment they're going into on Saturday.
Yeah, it can be. I'm just trying to. I'm trying my best to find what Tennessee's answers are. Well, let's start with this. The best matchup in this game is your guy James Pierce Jr. against this Georgia offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
It's they're number two. They're number 2 behind Oregon in pass protection. James Pierce Jr. has the 3rd best pass rush grade in the country. I know Beck gets rid of the ball quickly. Their pass pro is really good. They have NFL tackles, all that stuff. If Tennessee is going to have a chance in this game, James Pierce Jr. is going to play the game of his life. That's the best on paper matchup, strength on strength in this game. Tennessee has to find a way to get back to running the ball, man.
Yep.
They only ran, and I know they were behind. They only ran for 83 yards last week, and Jalen Wright only had 22. When we were talking about him earlier in the year, Jalen Wright was really the engine of this offense, right? Yeah. It wasn't like last year where they're going to drop back and throw the ball and Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt. Oh, no, they're not like that. It's just not. We've talked about this before. Tennessee's identity is totally flipped, okay? I'm not sure they're real satisfied with what Joe Milton has become. There just hasn't been a ton. And I know the weapons aren't the same.
Yeah.
But it's just not – it doesn't always click. It's very inconsistent. I think there's no more – I don't think there's a better embodiment of this team than when they played Alabama, and it looked so good in the first half and so bad in the second half. And I know Bama's Bama, but they showed the flashes. And that just feels like what Tennessee is right now. It's flashes. But they need to get back to running the ball with some success. The problem is they have the 3rd worst run block grade in the Power 5 since week 3. They're not blocking well. It's not really Jalen Wright, and I know Joe Milton's been scrambling more lately, like I've been kind of asking for. Especially against Bama, he ran the ball like crazy. But it's starting. I wonder if last week, if that was Tennessee football right there this year. It is, and I know it. I'm going to do the mini rant. I know I had the big rant off air. I have no idea in the world why Missouri was the underdog
at home.
Tennessee was favored at Missouri last week. That was a travesty.
Yeah.
The disrespect. Finally, Missouri gets the respect. I'm just throwing number 9 in the country now. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think if Missouri played Texas right now, I think they'd win.
Yeah, they might.
Especially without Brooks. That's how good Missouri is. I could call them legitimately the 9th best team in the country. In the last 2 weeks, 15-point dogs to Georgia, covered.
Mm-hmm.
Underdogs at home to Tennessee, nonsense. After Tennessee blasted UConn, cool. Tennessee. You look at their wins this year, UConn, Kentucky by 6, Texas A&M by 7. They're going to beat the teams they're better than, because I think they're better than those teams. I don't know that they have elite football in them.
No.
I just not, especially if they're not going to run the ball well. I'm not sure where it's coming from. They need Pierce, and even without Kamal Hadden, like we talked about last week, they need this defense to have a superhuman effort if they're going to stay in this game.
Yeah, and not only did Missouri win that game against Tennessee, even though they're underdogs, which I agree with you was insanity, they blasted Tennessee in that game. 36-7 was the final score. I mean, again, I hate that your rant was off camera, man, because it would have been unreal vindication for you just to be like.
I was hot. Had I known that during the show that they were underdogs, I actually didn't know that until you told me the spread. I was hot.
Yeah,
I
wish. Again, I just want.
I know Missouri is our guys, and Kirby Moore not even being on the list for the Broyles is I'm not even going to take that award seriously at this point. It's
a travesty.
Nonsense.
It's a travesty.
You took like a not good offense and you made it a top 10 offense overnight. I just cannot.
And there's 58 nominees, and he's not one of the. So you're telling me he's not top 60?
He's not even in the top 60.
Yeah.
Right? Like what are we doing?
I agree.
You'll see when Missouri plays somebody in a New Year's Six and they win.
Yeah.
And you go, oh my God, Missouri, what a year!
And Kirby Moore gets a head coach job and a really good job. Yeah. Then we'll say. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the thought process is there. I have no idea.
So just for people, like we've had a lot of great rants on this show, but just for people to know, Dalton's rant after the show of why the heck is Missouri an underdog at home to Tennessee was the best rant we ever had. I'm really mad that we didn't get that on camera. Unfortunately, that was my fault that I didn't mention it earlier. But yeah, man, I agree with you. But the big matchup again. So I had a tackle versus edge matchup in the last game, in the Arizona-Utah game. Another tackle edge matchup in this game. I'm really excited about. James Pierce Jr. You're still right for me, man. James Pierce Jr. against Ameris Mims. Pierce, 91.6 pass rushing grade. That's third in the country. He has third best pass rush win rate. He's fifth in pressure rate as well. He's really staking his claim as one of the top prospects in the 2025 NFL draft. Of course, he's only a true sophomore, so he has to return to school next year. But we're going to be doing a mock draft after the season's over of everybody eligible. Everyone in college football is eligible. James Pierce Jr., I haven't decided yet. He might be my top edge in that draft, man, that we're going to do. I think he could be a top 5 pick next year. I think this guy is special. He often lines up against the right tackle, which means he'll have plenty of reps against Amarius Mims, who returns from his injury. Mims right now, the number 28 prospect on PFF's big board. 0 sacks, 1 pressure allowed this year on 107 pass blocking snaps. Also has an 81.4 pass blocking grade this year. He missed 6 games this season. That's why he's only had 107 pass blocking snaps. He had ankle surgery. But last week, he returned for that Ole Miss game. So he is back in the lineup now for Georgia. And with Pierce lining up against the right tackle on most of his plays and Amarius Mims being Georgia's right tackle, you got first round on first round, in my opinion, in this game. And that is, listen, I'm really excited for the Ellis versus Jordan Morgan matchup. And both guys will be in this year's draft. So that is huge for this year's draft and Pierce's next year's draft. But I mean, you might have a top 10 pick in James Pierce Jr. And I've seen a lot of people have Amarius Mims as the number 3 tackle behind Alt and Fashanu in this draft as well. So that is a matchup I think even better than Ellis versus Morgan. I think Pierce against Amarius Mims, that is the must-see matchup of the weekend, in my opinion.
I like that a lot because you know what it does? It's another one. I had this a few weeks ago with Talisi Fuaga. Justice for right tackles, man.
Yeah.
They're just as important. Please start throwing praise on any elite right tackle that you see. Just that's all. We had it with Fuaga. Now we have it with Mims. I don't care if he goes to the league and he's a right tackle. He doesn't have to play left tackle. Mm-hmm. If he's an elite right tackle, leave him there. That's another one. I'm on the train just for that. I'm on the Amarius Mims train for sure.
Yeah. And dude, not only I'm really excited because Pierce, what he wins is his size and speed and his explosiveness. Like that's or strength and speed. Speed to power is insane for James Pierce Jr. Amarius Mims is a freak athlete too. So you got 2 freak athletes, 2 superstars as well. I am so excited to watch that matchup, and that'll probably say a lot about either guy, honestly, and how they perform in that game because that is NFL on NFL right there. And Pierce versus Amarius Mims. Ultimately, Dalton, I'm not going to ask you if Tennessee will pull off the upset, but how close do you think the Volunteers make this game against Georgia?
41-20.
Yeah, I'm even worse. I have 41-17.
Yeah, I don't think much needs to be said. And the one thing I'll say with the pass rush thing and Pierce and all that, Carson Beck's only been sacked 9 times all year.
Yeah. He's not like Caleb Williams. He's not holding that ball forever. He's getting that ball out quick. So even if Pierce is beating Mims, man, that ball's probably out already. So
even if Georgia doesn't play as well as they did last week, I don't see a road here.
Yeah.
I think this is, yeah. I could not think of a logical way that Tennessee could beat Georgia. A logical one. Obviously, if, something awful happened, injury or something, or, they Crisco all the footballs and everybody's fumbling or what. But I don't have a logical road for them, even at Tennessee. Look at how Georgia's playing right now.
Yeah.
And honestly, look at how Tennessee's playing right now.
Yeah.
Here's the best way I can describe Tennessee, I think. We talked about on Monday. I think there's a clear line, right? You have the elite teams in the SEC. Bama, Georgia, Missouri, LSU, Ole Miss. Probably those 5, right? And then you have, the bottom half, where right now I think we're sitting on A&M and Florida and South Carolina and the rest. And I think Tennessee right now is sitting, if there's a team that was the line,
yeah, it's probably Tennessee. Yeah.
Either you're better than Tennessee or you're not. And but I don't think Tennessee is in this class.
Yeah.
Could their defense play up in the but even the pass rush thing, Carson Beck gets rid of the football. He just doesn't. I don't know. It's it's weird because I want to be like, well, here's a way to beat Carson Beck, but I just don't really have one. I don't know.
Yeah, Bowers is back too. I mean, he returned against Ole Miss.
And Bowers is back, and he came right back. He scored a touchdown last week. Is that right?
Yeah.
Freak of nature.
Yeah, and then Ladd McConkey, he's really picked it up too. I mean, that I just don't know, man.
You know what? Somebody brought this up to me, and I think it's a great point. Ladd McConkey is going to be the guy. Now, maybe he'll go higher. Maybe people will be like, "Oh, wow, he's great." Maybe he'll go in the top 50 somewhere. I don't know if Trevor's got him up there somewhere that high.
He likes him a lot, I know. Let me see real quick.
If he drops for whatever reason, even into round 3, this year or every year there's one guy, and this year it's Puka Nacua who is the mid-round receiver that tees off. It could be McConkey. He's as good a route runner as there is in the country.
He is. So Trevor has him number 60 on his big board right now. So
that's probably about right. I might even take him a few spots higher than that. He's going to be one of the steals of the draft. Nacua, even I remember Stephon Diggs was a 5th-round pick.
Yep.
I don't know if he'll be as good as Stephon Diggs, but McConkey, he's going to go somewhere wherever he's drafted, be just a really solid football player. He is. He's one of the best route runners in the country. I would put him as a top 5 route runner in the country.
So would I. He destroyed Ole Miss's corners last weekend, and that's something I want to bring up and why I think Georgia's ultimately going to destroy Tennessee. I thought there was a world where Ole Miss can pull it off because, like we mentioned, if you have a really good ground game against Georgia, great, like Kentucky had with Ray Davis. But the problem is if you have no threat of a passing game, Georgia's just going to key in on the ground game, take that away, and then you have nothing. Ole Miss, I thought, could have a chance because I think, okay, Quinshon Judkins, obviously a superstar running back, but then Jackson Dart and those receivers, man, they're dangerous. And I thought, okay, maybe they could pull this off, and they got blasted by Georgia. Georgia manhandled them in that game. Tennessee has a better defense than Ole Miss, so maybe they can keep Georgia to a much lower scoring game. But at the same time, man, it's I like Jalen Wright a lot. I think he's a great running back. But then I don't trust Joe Milton to make the throws necessary to win this game, unless he has a Clemson performance. I don't know. I
think that the reality is there's only 5 or 6 teams in the country. I'll throw Missouri in there. You know what? They're another one. They played with them. There's only 6 or 7 teams in the country that can play with Georgia.
Yeah.
That could even step on the field, honestly. Yeah. You're going to see one of them, Alabama. That might be the game of the year. Missouri played a good game against them on the road especially. I didn't think Missouri played a bad game, and now they're getting respect. There's only a handful of teams that could even step on the field with them, and I just don't. Tennessee got a good football team, but they're not one of them.
No, they're not. So, yeah, we're both taking Missouri. We're both taking Georgia in a blowout over Tennessee. 41-17 you got 41-20.